Welcome. I'm Colin Masson, the Research Director for Industrial AI at ARC Advisory Group. And I'm here today with Bryan Saunders, Global Director and Head of IoT Industry Consulting at SAS. Bryan, tell our audience a little bit about your role at SAS before we discuss SAS's approach to the AI and analytics lifecycle.
Sure. Thanks, Colin. So I have the distinct pleasure of managing a diverse group of subject matter experts that reside globally, expertise in various fields, whether that be manufacturing, energy, transportation, oil and gas, healthcare, public sector. We cover a pretty wide range of opportunities for our business. Really, our primary goal, regardless of that field, it's to help customers understand kind of the planning, adoption, and execution of strategic roadmaps for analytic solutions. And so that's sort of our North Star that sort of dictates kind of our day-to-day engagement models.
Thanks, Bryan. Let's perhaps start with a question on managing data. In our annual survey of over 500 industrial organizations at the end of 2023, we found that AI came out as the most impactful technology, or at least what they think is going to be the most impactful over the next 3 years. And that was a repeat of 2022, although there was a 35% jump, right, in, let's call it that hype of Gen AI has definitely had a positive impact on AI spending and investment. But we also found in a companion report that we did on leaders and laggards and what they were doing in the industrial AI investment area, we found that the biggest technical challenge for leaders and laggards alike was data quality. And as you and our ARC audience know, there's no shortage of data in the industrial sector, and certainly they're not new to AI. But what are your thoughts on how does SAS approach that data quality problem, and particularly related to AI?
Yeah, so at SAS we tend to talk about sort of many of these concepts through the lens of an AI and analytics lifecycle, which really comprised of three main areas: management of data being the first, development of models, and then deployment of insights. And I think we all kind of understand that the foundation of analytics is data. So that's been a core set of our capabilities that we offer to help, in terms of data access, data preparation, and data governance through the lens of these analytic decision-making processes. As I think about data management in the world of IoT and kind of across the industrial landscape, I tend to just use the little tagline, any data, anywhere, because that's the current realities as organizations are facing challenges with data that's not only at rest, sort of those traditional data systems, but also data in motion. That kind of, and the mix of data, you talk Gen AI, it traditionally in IoT and industrial, we're thinking measured sensors, temperatures, pressures, flows, using that around a device to derive some useful insight. But it's moving towards much more text and document, natural language based data challenges. And so it's certainly within the same lens that we attack these problems, but it's growing. And beyond that, compound it with video streams, acoustic data, the volume and the variety never changes, or never stops changing, I should say. I think regardless of the type of data, though, I think you rightfully pointed out, success is rooted in their ability to manage the quality of that data, because quality data leads to quality decisions and improved outcomes. And so as I think about one of the big challenges that organizations were struggling with, it's that data in motion. And it's creating new challenges, forcing new ways of thinking, not only in terms of kind of where data is generated, whether that be at the edge, in the cloud, or in between. But now the data management, when you think about these distributed execution environments, data management is now very tightly coupled to the analytic runtime and to the model that it's supporting. It's no longer sort of a standalone pillar. It's really distributed across many phases of that life cycle. So I think that's certainly a key focus. And then I mentioned the last phase, governance. I think folks have heard that term, and in the world of analytics or software development, people tend to think of governance as, oh, that's my source code repository, right? I'm governing, I'm managing. But the data has a lineage and a life cycle that organizations have to better understand, can have that traceability, especially in regulated or controlled environments, because what you do, where the data came from, and what operations you took on the data that led you to make a business decision that could have very benign impacts or very significant impacts to your employees, to the environment, just industry at large. It's certainly something that we're very focused on, and we've got a track record of sort of building that into our offerings.
Okay, so any data anywhere, and just to echo your comment on governance, we certainly found that again in that leader laggard report, that one of the characteristics of leaders were that they were more likely to have data and AI governance in some form of governance council, multidisciplinary. So certainly we see that as one of the characteristics of those leaders in adoption of AI in the industrial sector. But I did want to ask you another question about data, and I think it ties in with your any data anywhere. Because I see a lot of customers investing in data lakes, enterprise data fabrics. I won't name names, but you kind of know who they are, right? And those initiatives are often led by IT, and somehow there's this perception that you have to move everything to the cloud to make progress with AI and analytics. And we've been advising clients that maybe that's not the case. There's a lot of value in edge data, particularly when we're talking about petabytes, right? In some cases of data being generated by today's digital factories, or I mean, they're just producing data at incredible rates. A lot of it's untapped, and I guess that's really where you come in, right? So with your track record as SAS and your ability to access, manage, and govern data from the industrial edge as well, with your IoT platform and background in that as well, what's your advice and approach when customers, do they have to move all their data? What's your advice to those industrial customers?
Yeah, so let me start by saying I agree with the premise that there isn't really an industrial grade data fabric available today, and frankly, I'm a bit on the fence if I feel that's a good thing or a bad thing. And kind of what I mean by that is certainly there's value in having well thought out standards and frameworks in place across industry, enterprise and industry at large, because I think that does give the way for maybe an improved pace of adoption and interoperability across systems and infrastructure, which I think is one of the impediments of IoT today. However, kind of where I think it may be a bad thing is I've seen organizations on this pursuit of a utopian data fabric as one of their biggest impediments to success. They get so paralyzed by, I need all data across all systems, standardized, normalized, cataloged, inventoried within their cloud infrastructure. And the reality is that that's just not feasible. It comes at a Herculean cost and a lot of effort. And with that cost and effort comes time, and time is the enemy in industrial operations or any industry these days with analytic programs. People lose patience. They're not seeing those returns. So again, I think that is a real problem. So, those organizations that are investing into their programs, trying to drive that consistency across their operating facilities, I think they struggle, because I think you and I would agree that, we talk to a lot of manufacturers and they have lots of facilities. And usually the only consistent thing across those facilities is the name on the building. They use various vintages of technology. They're instrumented to differing degrees. Levels of automation adoption vary from plant to plant. They create a very diverse product mix. So those challenges, I think, are part of the reason why organizations that take that sort of big bang approach have struggled. And so my recommendation has always been, start small, focus on value. I identify an issue within one facility that's driving excessive cost, inefficiency, waste, and look at the data you need just for that use case. Like, don't go, if you're doing predictive maintenance and all you need is time series sensor data, I don't need to bring in all my ERP and MES data and all, billing and sales data. You're just opening a can of worms that doesn't yield a lot of benefits. So I think if they do so and they really start to constrain, we're going to find the data we need for this problem to drive this known quantity of value and get there quickly. That becomes a building block in the broader sort of data fabric. And so I think as they tackle these problems, they're able to quickly realize value, scale up their successes, and scale out as appropriate on a use case by use case basis. You'll hear this referred to as sort of a crawl, walk, run methodology. I think those quick wins, I think, have proven that they can be a great catalyst for organizational momentum. They fuel these new innovation projects. You get people excited. They want to tackle more and more of these problems. And pretty soon you have enough building blocks in place that you start to see that industrial grade data fabric sort of taking shape right before your eyes, even though that wasn't the initial goal. So certainly that's where I recommend. Edge has created a new paradigm there, as you mentioned, and it's sometimes that data does not need to be transferred to the cloud or stored or historized over long periods from a cost perspective and just a speed of decisioning perspective. Oftentimes, milliseconds matter in industrial enterprises. So if you have to move all your data and then learn from it in a cloud, you might be missing some opportunity. So that's kind of where that edge interplay is quite prevalent today.
Okay, thanks, Bryan, for that very pragmatic approach to managing data, tackling the problem one use case at a time, and assembling an industrial grade data fabric, because one doesn't exist today, right? Thanks. You've been listening to Colin Masson of ARC and Bryan Saunders of SAS discussing the AI and analytics lifecycle. For more on today's topic, download my ARC view titled Industrial Grade AI, Transforming Data into Insights and Outcomes from arcweb.com, or follow Bryan Saunders and I on LinkedIn, where you'll find transcripts of today's conversation online and links to that white paper. So thanks very much for listening to us today.